Hello, I'm here with Tim Wright, who's one of our speakers today at the Regional Regenerative Ag Farming Forum at Tokau College, put on by Local Land Services. I'd like to ask Tim to start with a little bit about his operation and I guess what made him make the change towards regenerative ag.
I guess what really kicked me, and is nothing, it's very similar to today, was the drought of '82 when I first took over the running of our property, and I realised it's taking me 4 to 5 years for the land to recover, and financially to recover, and I spent a lot of money the wrong way, and I just was looking for an alternative way of farming, and so I just went out and learned as much as I could, and along came Alan Savory, and not then, but it was nearly 10 years later I learned from, but I started reading more about it, and it just gradually fell into place about regenerative agriculture in its way.
What have you changed on your property?
Well, the big thing, I guess, is the result has been the reduction in our indirect cost of production, which a fellow called Stan Parsons quoted. He said 70 to 80% of our costs are land and labour related, and that triggered something in my mind, and I thought, okay, I've got to cut on that one, because it's our declining terms of trade that we're up against all the time. Cost of wages keep going up, our products are going up but not in line, so there's this gap. So that's what I was focusing on, and reducing those costs, and probably the biggest one was labour. So we were one man to roughly 5,000 DSC back in that time. We're now 1 to 15,000, and doing it easy, because we're not doing the stuff that we used to. I don't do the sowing of pastures anymore. It's all native. I haven't fed any hay out for nearly 25, 30 years. Hay sheds I've pulled down because it affects me seeing them, because it makes me think, oh, I've got to fill them up, but I don't. And so the hay shed is in the paddock, and that's due largely to the planned grazing, having a plan that of grass that's still out there, and you just have one quick graze and then you're off, and then it's gone. And the value of rest as a tool, I never thought of resting paddock, but it is. It's like a plough or a spanner. It is a tool, and the more we can rest, the better the result. The more humus we put back in, the more humus, the less fertiliser needed.
You spoke today about not knowing about needing a grazing plan when you started out, and then you said that you've worked out that it's vital and that everybody should have one. What to you is the essence of a grazing plan that most people might miss?
I think the main thing is that this is a plan that's adjusted from day to day. And so you read the land, you look out and you say, well, I don't want to see our land go backwards, and I want to keep it about 1,500 kilos to the hectare, if you can read that biomass. And so to get that, you start to plan accordingly. So you adjust your stocking rate to suit. Like at the moment, we've cut our stocking rate back by about 55%, 50%. 30% of that was adjustment stock. But that has allowed us to spread the cattle, spread the sheep into more area, and rest the land for longer.
Some people might say that regen ag might be something for tree changers or hobby farmers, but you're saying no, on a commercial scale it makes sense and it does have outcomes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We've had some good research data from the University at Armidale to mainly through the botany department, studying what we've been doing to back up the science, and it's been very valuable. It's proven that we can get less bare ground. Like there's still bandied around that we should have, aim for 70% ground cover. That's not on as far as I'm concerned. Even in the Western Division, we can go higher than 70%. We should be aiming for at least 95% ground cover, and we can do that, and that will help. Once we get that ground cover there, then the water holding capacity of our land improves. So it's not about building dams. Our main water source is under the ground, but we don't see it that way because we can't see it. We've got to see it physically, a big dam. The more water we store, the more organic matter, the better it is. So,
do you think a lot of people have forgotten that Mother Nature should be a business partner in this farming game then?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, we've got to work with nature, very much so. You've got to read the land, read the landscape, and adjust accordingly. And the same thing applies to different enterprises. We've got to match the enterprise to suit the environment. What do? We change the environment to suit the enterprise. And growing cotton out on the Western Division, I think has got a big question mark, because that's not the environment, you know. The Darling River is a creek relative to the European standards, and yet we pump out of it. We've got to think differently and apply ourselves differently, match the enterprise to suit that environment. And sheep used to be out that way, they're not now so much. And I just think it's not the sheep that's the problem. People say, well, if you run sheep, they will overgraze the land or whatever. I'm sorry, it's not the sheep, it's the management. It's the manager who put them there that's the problem. And that's what today is about, and other days that that are being held. We've got to realise that we've got to learn how to have a grazing plan so that those sheep are allowed to move and not destroy the soil, not destroy the landscape. In fact, they actually enhance it if it's done right.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your time, Tim.